And we are live. We are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Tawana Bain. I am the founder of the Derby Diversity Business Summit. We are based in Louisville, Kentucky, such a time as this, with just the news yesterday of what's going to happen with Breonna Taylor. And so we're talking HR. Because there's a lot of responsibility right now within corporations to keep things moving and keep people's minds healthy and keep people together. I've got some fabulous panelists here with me today, and I will say that all of the views and comments that you will hear from these individuals are their personal own views and not necessarily with the organizations that they represent. So if you wouldn't mind, please introducing yourself and saying hello to everyone. Tiffany, we'll start with you and work our way around.
Thanks, Tawana. Hi, I'm Tiffany Cardwell, and I'm an HR advisor with MCM. I'm also the Louisville SHRM Chapter Wellness Director.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Martinez. I am a global quality lead for the human resources operations for Marshall McLennan Companies. You might be familiar with the building downtown that says Mercer on it. I work for that organization, and I also co-chair our racial and ethnic diversity business resource group, as well as our Pride resource group in the tower.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pamela Williams. I am the Director of Personnel Administration with Rudd Equipment. I also serve on the LSHRM board as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Hi, I'm Shawn Spencer, owner of Tryman Solutions. We're an HR consulting firm here in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm a long-term SHRM member, an LSHRM.
So my name is Raleigh Richardson. I'm actually the current president of LSHRM. I've had some experience in Mercer, but currently I am with Humana as a senior associate relations professional there. So thank you for inviting us.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Man, all of you people in HR are responsible for human assets. I can't even imagine what a difficult time this is to navigate both professionally and personally. Sir Raleigh, leading an organization where you've got all the different moving parts. Share with me just a little bit about how you individually are just doing in general as it relates to all the climate here in Louisville, just in general thoughts.
So in general thoughts, when I had this opportunity to actually speak here today, I thought to myself, I'm going to suit and tie. I'm going to be as, awesome as Mr. Martinez over here. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not in that mood right now. So let me just be very clear that what happened yesterday just wasn't a good day. It probably impacted productivity, and I'm very driven on productivity, but it's a reality that we had to kind of deal with, and we had to sit with it and deal with it and try to figure out how to move forward with it, because again, that is kind of how we do. I truly believe we have to get through this together as an organization, as a people, as a race, as a community, but we have to really address the true issue. Racism is real. I'll just say it right there. And since it's real, we have to address it. And when we address it from an HR perspective, if we can't get criminal aspect of this, let's determine what took place from a policy violation, what took place from a violation of how you did things ethically, and let's address it there and ensure that it doesn't happen again. The goal is that it doesn't happen again. This does not go away, because there's still more work to be done.
Yeah.
Lots and lots and lots of work to be done. Is there anyone else that would like to jump in on that before we dive in?
I would just say that because I have friends on East Coast, West Coast, everywhere, it was almost like my phone was just ringing off the hook with text messages. I was getting inbox messages. Everyone wanted to know, are you okay? Of course, it's all over the national news. And as Raleigh said, I would agree, we just had to sit with it and kind of chew on it a little bit, really to digest what happened. And and even at a point where I was at home last night, I just kind of melted, in front of the TV, on my couch, and still trying to rationalize with what happened and why did it happen and how we ended up this way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a tough day. I think, I tell people all the time, I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know. And I was actually on a call with someone, a Zoom call, as a matter of fact, and they're newly moved into their home. And so their TV and all that, wasn't in place. And so we decided that I would share my screen and also, turn on the television so that she could tune in. And Black woman, white woman. And so we're experiencing this, at the same time. And at first I heard officer indicted, right? So in my mind, oh, okay, so we've got charges. This is good. And it took a moment for it to all kind of run its course and for me to really begin to understand what all that meant. Right. And as I began to understand what all that meant, right now, today, we're streaming from my restaurant. And I had someone say, hey, can I just come and speak to you? And I'll tell you one of the hardest things. And this is why I think this conversation, will the HR leaders please stand up? It's so mission critical because people are, the human asset is a tricky one. It is a tricky one. And, this young man comes in, he had been streaming and watching everything that was transpiring. And as he began to tell me the emotion out on the street, and he sits down and you could suddenly see him tense up. And we're talking, I say young man, he's actually older than I am. And I see the tears. Mm-hmm. And I see him clench up. I see the muscles in his arm. And I just clench up. And he was not embarrassed that he was crying, but certainly wasn't prepared for it. Mm-hmm. And he turned and he walked into the other room. And I let him. I didn't immediately go. And I sat there and I allowed myself to feel, and I allowed myself to experience not just my hurt and my pain, but others. And that's what you all are doing on a regular basis. That is what you are doing on a regular basis. So, Eric, would you please share with us, as a leader in HR, you guys are responsible for, I won't say enforcing the law, right? But applying and regulating what the company's policies are around labor and workplace, et cetera, right? And sometimes I'm certain that can get pretty tricky when you're dealing with race. How do you deal with navigating that? And how can you encourage other leaders to really think outside the box right now? Because it's not as simple as black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the perfect way you just described it. It is not black and white. I try to help people understand human resources gets the bad rap, right? Because we sign off on the terms. That's just the name of the game, and it's the way the cookie crumbles. But we have two roles. We're here to protect the organization. We are here to protect the employees. We are here to make sure that the organization is doing right by employees, regardless of their age, their gender, their race, or anything of that nature. And the judicial system is very tricky. It is very slippery. You hit the nail on the head there. There are very specific rules and policies in judicial hearings that you have to make sure you check those boxes. And it does become a different world with race. We recently just started up our racial and ethnic diversity group. We had a kickoff meeting last month that Pamela was gracious enough to join us. Everybody's inundated with information. There's social media, there's the news, there's what you're reading in the newspapers, there's what you're reading on magazines in the grocery checkout line, and people just need to understand that, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. And so one of the first things that we have tried to do is to take a step back. We're going to take an objective point of view, right? We're going to take the ethos out of the equation, and we're going to review systemic issues in America today, race issues in America today. Where did they come from? Why are people having these conversations. Those things that you see on the news, that they're trickling over into conversations in the workplace. They are. And so what we are trying to do is help people understand why those conversations are happening. And there are a lot of people who are very receptive to that. Surprisingly, I was very surprised and shocked at the level of participation and the willingness for people to learn more in an environment where they felt comfortable asking questions, in an environment where they didn't feel that they were going to be chastised for not knowing. And it has been an excellent start to really trying to cope, for lack of a better word, and to move into the right direction.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Sean, as a Black woman, right, you're in a position where you consult, you understand policy, you understand regulation. How can more consultants leverage their role and their expertise to ensure policies within an organization, although are also there to protect the employer, can really begin to tear down some of the systemic issues that exist in society?
Tawana, you're correct. I mean, as a consultant and also for internal HR folks, we're walking that thin line. We're there to protect the employee, but also there to protect the employers. Right now, what we're doing at HR Consulting is basically not necessarily saying blame it on us, but we're able to come in as that outside entity that really doesn't have a dog in the fight, doesn't have a place in the company. We're not there on one side or the other. We're just trying to inform and educate and create policies that are going to move the workplace forward and keep everyone in a safe, productive way. And that means mentally safe as well, not just physically safe. And so one of the things we've been doing is we've really been approaching racist people and racism, where it's systematic, whether it's inside an organization or if it's systemic, where it's came down from generations. We're really treating that as a disease. When we're born, how do they say it? Tabula rasa, with a blank slate. You are taught to be a racist. You are taught racism. And even if you're not doing it overtly, sometimes you're doing it covertly just because of you're in that place, you don't recognize, you don't empathize with the other person, and you don't take the time to learn. And so we're doing it from an education point of view, re-educating employees, re-educating the owners of companies, the managers, because sometimes people really are not doing it because they are racist. It's coming from a place of racism, but they don't recognize it. And so that's a lot of what we've been doing. I would say even for the past year, it's just really hit home here in Kentucky because of the events that have happened recently with Breonna Taylor, but then also Kentucky's reputation. When you go and visit other places in the United States, when you go outside of the country, when you say Kentucky, there's a couple of things that come to mind. You've got basketball, you've got horse racing, Muhammad Ali, and then you've got racism. And a lot of people don't want to admit that. They want to say, we're not part of the South, we're the North. Or, we equate more with Indianapolis or St. Louis or Cincinnati. Well, we also have roots in places in deep South. And so sometimes we're on that border, and we have to teach our employers how to recognize that when they're interviewing, when they're recruiting, when they're creating interview questions, when they're disciplining people, even when they're looking at accommodations. We've got accommodations right now for COVID-19, but we've got some mental stressors right now. And people are needing some mental time away. I know, Raleigh, you just mentioned that, you just did not feel the suit and tie thing today. Well, a lot of people are going through that, and they're bringing that mental exhaustion, that mental fatigue into the workplace, and it's affecting the people around them. So I know that's kind of a long answer to what you asked, Tawana, but we're having to hit it from different sides right now. And it's just not we can't just policy it away.
No, I can certainly respect that and certainly also understand that. And, from a mental health perspective, just in general, the number of people that have said, hey, I'm checking out, I need to go for a drive, I need to leave the city. The sad thing is when I really step back because of everything that is going on in America right now, where can you go? And it's not just where can you go in America, but where can you go in the world to truly escape the realities of a pandemic and then a racism as well. So another pandemic. Pam, as a Black female, right, you are also, in the space of HR. We have lost a life here in our state, and for what many feel is an injustice into the way in which, it was handled. How do you, within your personal life, within your just with your family and your girlfriends, how are you helping lean in with them and provide some of that solace at this time?
Yeah, that great question, Tawana. It's about checking in. I actually took the time this morning to check in with about 15 family members and about 6 or 7 of my girlfriends by text, just saying, tomorrow's not promised. We need to love on each other every single day, and I love you. And we may have said that in the past pre-COVID because we're in each other's presence, with a hug and goodbye. I love you. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow's just not promised with the way things are going on right now. So I personally felt that I needed to, reach out and say, hey, girlfriend, haven't talked to you in a minute. I just need you to know that I'm thinking about you. I love you. And hugs, virtual hugs. So that's how I've approached it. We've also, within my family, we created a private Facebook group just for our family so that we could check in with each other, so that we could, because I have a lot of elderly people in my family on my mom's side, just so that we can check in and say, hey, how's it going over there? Do you need anything? So that we can see each other's face. They want to see your face. It's not just a part of picking up the phone. They want to see you. So for me, I take it very personal to be able to take the time to check in. I don't want to just say, I'm thinking about you. I'm reaching out to say, hey, girlfriend, you okay? Do you need anything? I love you. Virtual hugs. So, that makes a difference. And every single one of them responded with, oh my God, you made my day. Thank you. Heart.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was decided to stay here at the restaurant because I knew that there were so many people, depending on which way things would have gone, would have just needed a place, a safe place, a place of refuge to just come and talk, and was able to spend the evening. And I described to a girlfriend this morning when she checked in on me, and I said, it was a beautiful, tearful, funny, emotional evening, because we allowed ourselves to just be real. And so I encourage all of you, as well as if you are able to use your platforms within your organizations, to try to mimic that. Because one moment we were laughing, one moment we were crying, one moment I just said, listen, we're just going to be real. I took the wig off and we sat down and we just got to know one another, because that's where we are in America. That is where we are. And it's like, you don't have time for the games. You don't have time for putting this person against that person. We are fighting for the soul of our country, and the way in which we do that is by really leaning in and being human, with one another. And the question is, how can HR leaders stand up and really use their platform to do that? And so, Tiffany, I now come to you, my new friend who attended Pivot Champs. And I swear, you were like a little paparazzi. You were like a digital photographer capturing all the moments. And I am greatly appreciative, because we weren't thinking about that. We were in the middle of just doing a digital event, but your coverage was fantastic. But so how do we bring that to our spaces at work? How do we make sure that these human assets that so many are responsible for are able to have all the feels?
Mm-hmm. I think, Tawana, you hit it right there. We're all human. I think that's one of the things we need to start with, is really thinking about, what does that mean to us? I echo, some of my other colleagues that are on this. And we've done a lot of different things to kind of help in terms of resource for our HR field through the local HR Association. And, we've put a statement out there on where we stand. We've put a couple of things in place, Pam being diversity, myself doing wellness, because we knew how important it was, not just from a COVID standpoint, but just an environment, work environment, systemic racism that may, be existing everywhere, and how people are feeling. So that human touch really, to me, is probably the biggest piece that we need to get to our leaders to understand that it's not something that's just coming and going. It's not just about some decisions made through our process. It is about really listening and really understanding and making sure we're educating our teams that we work with and our friends every day. So some of you have already kind of mentioned, and I did the same thing, I've gotten texts, emails, calls, just that little touch of saying I'm here. Mm-hmm. I think is important. Sean did a great job kind of talking about, the role of an HR consultant and advisor for companies. It's being that objective party to be able to really reflect and let a company know, here are the gaps that you have. And you might not see it, not because it's intentional, but it's because maybe it's just the way things have been. And that needs to change now.
I would also add, Tawana, that, we can certainly, for those of us that are in position to reach out to the respective leaders and ask the question, have you taken the time to sit and chat with someone today or yesterday? What I really appreciated this morning is that one of our leaders did come in and sat and talk with me. She said, I just want to check in and make sure you're okay. How are you doing? So if we can foster that, and if we can continue to encourage more leaders to do that, will make a difference. I felt it was genuine, and that's what mattered.
I agree, Pam. That communication is so, so important, especially from leaders of our organizations. And again, don't be afraid if you don't know information. I am learning every day on everything for as much as there is out there. And I think each one of us learns, some new nugget about everything. But being open to the conversation, I think, is so important right now. Absolutely. Where I think sometimes we get so enclosed in maybe the way we do think about things, give a little, lean in, be open to the conversation.
And I just want to be very clear. A lot of guys don't like the whole leaning in and virtual hugs. But I want to be the guy to be very clear and transparent about it. I'm okay with that. That's why I didn't wear the suit. That's why I wanted to let people know I wasn't okay. And it's okay to say you're not okay. It's okay to be a big burly guy and say, I'm not okay. And I could use a hug too, right? It's okay to have those genuine, authentic conversations with your male friends and your female support people and say, hey, I need to talk. I need to just be me. Just for a minute. I'll wear a suit tomorrow. But right now, I just need to kind of go, I'm somebody's father. I'm somebody's grandfather. I'm somebody's husband. I can't protect my wife. If someone knocked on the door, someone starts shooting into my home, I can't do something to say, hey, this isn't right.
Yeah.
I just, like you said, sometimes you just need a minute. Like I said, I'll wear a suit tomorrow, but today, not so much.
Raleigh, you just absolutely hit a nerve with me, because that is the first time that I have heard it put quite that way. And I think I just had my temperature literally rise up. That how does a man feel when he is looking to protect his spouse, and in exchange, her life is taken and there is no justice? And I think that was just a very tough pill to swallow. I think I've been spending so much time understanding Brianna as a fellow Black woman that I had not thought about what Kenneth is feeling as her Black man. And that was very, very deep. And so I needed to sit in that for just a moment, because it was the first time that had occurred to me that way. So thank you for those comments. And I really just need just one moment.
Mhm.
I have children, I have sons, and I want them to be able to protect their homes, and I want them to be able to protect their wives. And so how do we go about doing that? And how do those that are in the powers to be understand the significance and the importance of fixing a system so that we can? So thank you for those comments. Kelly, I would like to come to you. Thank you for joining us. I know we were kind of going around and getting started and jumping into the conversation, but I would like to take a moment and allow you to introduce yourself. And then I do have a few questions for you as well.
Yeah, I'm Kelly Groves, and I work at SHP Management as a senior payroll and benefit administrator. I've been working and volunteering with L. Sherm for many years in a lot of different roles there, currently working in membership.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Your presence currently today is one of importance, because we're often talking allyship or just allies in general. Kelly, how are you? We recently did a digital dialogue series around white women standing up against racism. How are you lending your voice in the HR space? And what are some tips that you might be able to lend to others as well?
I think a lot of people have already touched on this, but I think having the open door, having people come in, allowing them space to talk about, how they're feeling, how they're dealing with things, and really being able to listen. I think learning, I think Tiffany, mentioned that. I'm learning all the time about racism and how people in the Black community, feel and have felt for years. And I think there's been a lot of misconception on my side on this. And so I've learned a great deal just in talking to other HR leaders and, what they're doing in their roles at their companies, and how they're responding. At our company, we have actually we're actually a little bit different. We're not right in Kentucky. We're all over in 15 different states, and we have a lot of diversity. Some, more a white area, some more Black area. But overall, the company is very diverse, and we've really taken a hard stand this year to really do a lot of training on racism and diversity within our organization. It hit right at the right time because we were initiating a lot of new training programs. And so it was one of the things we put right at the top of our training program.
Got it. Thank you. Well, I've given everybody a chance to just kind of hopefully breathe just a little bit. And now I do want to dig in a little bit to some of the tougher questions. This topic actually came about because a Black female wrote in about a local financial organization that she felt was extremely racist and extremely ill-equipped to deal with Black people. And she was really annoyed at the fact that a person that was in HR didn't know anything about racism, didn't understand the history of Black America, just didn't understand a lot. And so she said to me, how is it that an individual who is responsible for both protecting me as well as an organization has no clue about the history of Black America? And why is that allowed? And that, I'm reading this very long email and actually wanted her to come on, and she said no, because I'll probably say something that that I can't take back. Right. But I thought to myself, that's a very, very good point. If we're placing HR professionals in leadership roles where they are responsible for policy and enforcing rules, And they are also doing that for groups of people that they know have absolutely no background about. That can absolutely make or break that person's experience, how they're let go, whether they're hired, whether they're given a certain salary or not. How do we ensure be qualified?
So if I'm going to ask a question without asking a question. I recently received an email similar to probably what you're discussing. I reached back out to that particular person about a financial institution, and we went back and forth and had some genuine conversation via email. We also set up some time to have a Zoom call and had some conversations. Again, I'm not saying this is the same person, but in the event that it is, that's okay. Because I try to be very transparent. Because, if you bring an issue to me, if you bring an issue to HR, we're going to address the issues. We can't close the box unless we really determine what the true facts are. So I listened. I tried to come up with a game plan and also provided some resources. When you're saying that it's this, my question is just kind of like Shauna had said, I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't work there. I'm just really looking at what's truly the issue. So when we looked at truly the issue, there were some other factors, and we discussed those other factors. And then we're trying to move toward improving that person's own personal issues that they had to deal with, on top of a clearer understanding that that financial institution that I'm talking about has since had an awakening and hired a diversity director, and they're moving in that direction. So the things that associates have to understand, it's not that they're sitting in their own space and going, they don't understand what's going on. They have to also think to themselves, there are other HR professionals that actually might be working on that, and it may not be happening on your timetable, but it's still happening. So it's really important that associates still bring those things to our attention, but it's also important to let them know that just because you think it needs to happen one way doesn't mean it's going to happen the way you want it to happen. And just because you think it should happen now, that's the word strategic, right? There are some things that might be happening in the background that you shouldn't even know about, but they're happening to improve the overall health of the organization and the associates that we work with.
I love that.
I had a comment on that, Tawana. So I think one of the things that, everything from what's happening right now, along with COVID, that's important for people to realize, and I think they are realizing, is that HR really has a very, very strong impact with the people of an organization. And oftentimes what happens is people kind of blend that role to someone that may be doing something else within the organization. And that's why you're seeing a lot of, to me, programs, certifications, and all of that show how much value there is to that profession. And not only that, but, in thinking about just the issues that people are getting educated on, like Raleigh said, once you have a chance to communicate and talk through them, then resolution usually will be there in some way, shape, or form. You can't win everything, right? There's always going to be some employee relations, and that's a huge part of HR, which oftentimes when people get thrown into a role and they're not ready to handle those tough conversations and those conflicts, then it does turn into a more difficult situation. So I just wanted to share that because I'm seeing more, and it's exciting to see more and more of the HR profession out there and being recognized as a profession. Because every manager does HR. They just don't realize it sometimes because they try to separate that as a field. But honestly, your managers and your supervisors who handle direct reports, they should all have an HR hat at all times.
And I was going to say, the other thing that just, I was going to just say, overall, they just need to be sure to communicate what the actual issue is and don't give a general overview. This is what I think is happening. So what did they do to you? What did they say to you? Was there a violation of policy? Was there a violation of ethics? And let's focus on those things.
No, very, very well said. Sean, in your experience, what is the best way an organization can go about ensuring that they are hiring a qualified HR manager? You know, tests aside, right? Because you have all these different tests. You got the unconscious bias, you got, and oftentimes some of the tests before the test, Black people weren't involved in creating, maybe nor even people of color. So how do you identify whether or not this candidate, this individual is qualified and competent and knowledgeable enough to manage this role dealing with so many different diverse subsets?
Right. I think it's a two-parter. One part of it is to follow up kind of what Tiffany was talking about as far as managers are HR people, or they have HR duties and they just don't realize it, managers and supervisors. I think you have to start with analyzing your workforce and where you are. A lot of companies in the HR profession, we don't necessarily like it. We don't recommend it, but they hire who they know, and who they know fosters an environment, a stagnant sameness. They hire a friend of a friend. They promote from within. You're good at the front desk. We want you now to handle these HR duties. So when they come on board, not only do they not have the education piece as far as the policies, the laws, the best practices, they also are bringing along whatever their biases are that they have from their private life and from working at that company. So I think the first thing the company needs to do is really analyze what it needs and where it's at. Don't just go hire the first Black person you find because you're like, oh, we've got this diversity initiative now, so I want to put a woman, a person of color in this position, because we may not be the expert in diversity or in inclusion. So you definitely need to decide what you need, assess what your environment is, because that person may need to come in and change some of that. They may be rubbing up against the grain and people are not going to like that. So you got to decide what you want so that from the top down, you're supporting them coming in. And then second, just like you would do with other positions, you need to make sure that your questionnaires and your interviewing techniques and things like that fit the position. Ask those hard questions. I see that you're, go after somebody that's certified, but then ask them, I understand that you're certified, but can you tell me about a time when you've worked at a company where you've had to deal with a racist employee, or you've had to deal with being the only minority in a company? A lot of people interviewing, whether it be an owner of a company, a manager, top executive, they're afraid to ask those questions. Because just like Raleigh was saying earlier, we look at things very specifically. What was the incident that caused this? What precipitated this? They don't want to be viewed as asking the wrong question. But there are ways that you can ask the question to benefit your company. Now, I don't want you to ask, well, are you Black, biracial? What are you? I can't tell. But you can say, have you been in an environment where you are one of a kind? You're the only person that's there. How did you handle that? We have such and such problem. Will you be able to handle this? What would be your strategic plan for creating this? And it doesn't even have to be a real problem. You can make it up and say, if I came to you and told you our company has been recruiting for the last 2 years and we can't find any educated financial Black people. I think that's what a story I heard yesterday from a specific
Wells Fargo. That was my next question.
we've been recruiting for 2 years. We can't find any educated Black folk out here is basically what their premise of their CEO statement was. When we know there's not true, we have tons and tons of HBCUs that have financial majors and things like that. So we know that's not true. So, they need to ask, well, how would you fix that? And then let the interviewee come up with a strategic plan on how they would do it. Start grading them on that.
And I think the thing is, when you're sitting in a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and let's say you can't find them, okay? Let's say you can't. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you this, you got enough money to send about 1 million of them to school to get the degree so that you will have your own pipeline, right? And that's the problem that I'm having with. I just need people to just tell the truth. Okay, Eric. Okay, because actually, Sean, that was my next question. The CEO gets called out, blah 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 blah, and everybody's doing this sideways. And I said, you know what? If somebody was in that organization and has his ear, I would have said, well, you know what? Since you can't, let me get enough tuition for 1 million students so that we can turn a whole lot of these non-educated Black folk into CFOs. Who's with?
I was going to say, we just had a meeting last month with Kentuckiana Work, and they talked about the apprenticeship program. And I tell you what, it sounded awesome, and they just need the right people in there. If you're saying, as an organization, we need more people who can do this, they said they will be happy to take it outside of the labor force, but also into the professional apprenticeship programs. They're even looking at an apprenticeship program in HR. So they can definitely do one in economics. But like you said, it's the money, and you put your money where your mouth is. And like you said, I'm sure Simmons College, if you said, hey, by the way, I'll be happy to help you with your issue, or any other HBCU, they'll do it, right? But you got to put the money where your mouth is.
In a New York minute, and I don't mind serving as the poster child, okay?
I would agree. I would say they have to organically grow the talent that they need and they're looking for organically. And you're right. You have to put the money where the mouth is. And I just want to get back to a point real quickly with regards to finding the right HR candidate, the right HR person, is that it's not a one size fits all deal. Even in the interview process, it's not cookie cutter. You have to bend to who that person is, or lean to that person who's sitting in front of you, and ask different questions with different people to get the results possibly that you're looking for to find the right candidate. Because you can't go in and have you've got 5 different people, 5 different resumes, and everybody comes from the same or comes from different background. And it's when you're asking these behavioral based or behavioral type questions, kind of lean into it a little bit more and dig a little deeper based on the answers that they're giving you. So it's not it's not a cookie cutter approach to finding the right person or the right candidate.
Very much. And I also, just to tumble off of all of that, I think you have to take one step further, right? A lot of people are under the misconception that if you're good with people, then you're good in HR, right?
Right.
Which I will say, if you are not good with people, then you should not be in HR, right? But successful HR representatives are problem solvers. And if you are good at solving problems, you will be good in HR. And step one is companies acknowledging that there is a problem, right? Companies do not have problems recruiting minority employees. Companies have problems retaining them, right? You have to acknowledge that there is a problem. We have a line of business within one of our operating companies. We do not do business cases for diversity and inclusion initiatives. You should not have to be convinced to fast track somebody other than a white man over the age of 35. You should not have to be convinced to diversify your employee population. You have to grow from within. It's a culture change. It's a culture shift. You have to acknowledge that there's a problem, and organizations need to do that. There are organizations that are doing that. And I think we see more and more and more every day. And I see that on a global scale, So the first step is acknowledging you have a problem. I want to solve it. You go to your candidate. How are you going to help us achieve our goal? How are you going to get us to where we need to be? And I want to know specifics, and I want to know how you're going to do it, and I want to know why. These are incredibly difficult conversations to have, and it is time to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know, we've talked a lot about that finesse and, you know, easing people into things, but there is a yin to that yang, and that is being assertive in addressing the issues and tackling that.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that, if it's okay, Tawana, with what Eric just said, just because, again, you know, that is definitely something that I hear people say all the time, you know, hey, I'm great with people. I'm going to go in HR. Then I start giving them the real specifics around what does that discipline really mean? And are you ready to handle these situations? And then all of a sudden there's a little bit of a backtrack around it, because again, the problem solving, you hit it right on, is a huge piece of the HR function, and thinking about ways in different ways from what you're used to doing. I think that's another key point, so that, you know, no matter what we are facing within each of our organizations, the perspectives that are there are valuable. Just because they might not be exactly like your own perspective as part of that leadership team doesn't mean it's not a valuable perspective. And I think, again, we've been talking about that openness, and sometimes I think people cringe when they hear compassion, but it's not compassion sympathy. I was in a session earlier today with the Worksite Wellness Council giving their awards on all these different things that companies are doing well right now from a benefits perspective. And Tori Murden McClure said something about, and she's the president at Spalding, and she said something about, you know, those words, people don't really realize that it is being comfortable with uncertainty as part of compassion. You know, it's being there for another and taking on that pain, not just being sympathetic. So I just wanted to share that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would like to come back to something that Eric had said, and anyone feel free to jump in, because I think the reality is we would think that an individual would take the time to say, I am not equipped to be in this position. I am not the best person to be in this role. Just like we would expect a police officer to choose de-escalation over escalating. But the reality is some people think that they can do things that they absolutely have no business doing. There's none, right? Because if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be experiencing all that we're experiencing. So asking a person, you know, to not take a job because they know that they haven't, I just don't trust. I don't trust that. Sometimes it's kind of like the person that thinks they can sing and you're like, not your thing. It takes them a while, right, to understand that it's not for them. So how do we, as from the top, at the very top, come up with systems and ways ourselves to identify whether or not that person should be tapped to lead your biggest asset in your organization?
Well, I'll take a stab at answering that question. It takes wherewithal and fortitude. If you have an individual that bends to the smallest issues and cannot communicate clearly what a solution is, or cannot do a deep dive and from a strategic perspective to bring about a solution and strategies and planning or goals as it relates to whatever the issue, whatever the problem is. I'll use performance management as an example. If you're looking to redevelop a performance management program and you have someone that can't even see the first basic steps or understand the first basic steps on what it will take to redevelop or redesign a performance program, they're completely missing the point. With performance, where do you start? Right? So you're asked the question, where do you start? And if they're completely in left field, then you already know you have an issue. with that person. I'm just using performance because that's one area of HR, of course, that we heavily monitor and heavily involved in. But you can truly tell from an individual's level of expertise where they would fall in or rise in a particular situation.
There's an accountability to it, and I think there's accountability for any role in an organization, any role within an organization, right? Everybody has a job profile, a JD. These are the expectations, and from the top down, you have to hold people accountable for what you have hired them to do and to meeting organizational objectives. Myself personally, I manage 14 people. I pride myself on being a top performer. I always have been. I always will be. That is my MO. And I told everybody on my team, you will be top performers too, because if you're not, then I'm not. And so I am here to help you succeed. So from the top down, one, are you giving them the tools that they need to succeed? Are you offering training? Are you sending people to conferences? Are you really evaluating what those strategic initiatives are? You have to give them a bar to reach for. You can't just throw somebody in a pool and say, have at it. We'll see you in 6 months on your performance review. It's communication. It's process. And unfortunately, this is part of HR why nobody likes us. When people don't meet performance standards, there's a process for that.
Right.
And you have to hold that accountable, and organizational leaders have to hold themselves accountable first for wanting to drive those organizational changes. Back to your example earlier with the individual with the financial firm, I think not from HR, just as a minority in the workplace, sometimes the burden is on us to validate our own existence in corporate America. So, please tell me why you think it's important for companies to be diverse. Well, I'm glad you asked that. This is why I think that I should be working for you. You know what I mean? And the onus is on the minority employees sometimes too. And so that can be frustrating, and it has to be a team effort. It's not just from the top down, it's from the bottom up as well. Minority workers need to understand that we have voices too. And there are certainly appropriate ways to express those voices. And we can work together from the top down, from the bottom up. This isn't just you give somebody a task and expect them to make miracles happen. It's organizational involvement. It has to be organization-wide. It has to be enterprise-wide. It has to be a culture shift.
Yeah, there was another thing that came up this morning on another talk that I had to have. And the question that I received was, I have Black employees that I have asked to move up into leadership, and they have said no. And my response to her was, what I'd like to talk to them, because I feel as though, and I could be wrong, there might be a fear of there are people already in leadership that would set them up for failure. But I have to realize that that's my opinion. I don't know that to be fact, but I am very interested in speaking with them to help to understand. So I do want to know, and again, anybody feel free to jump in on this one. You have an organization, they want some people of color or maybe Black in leadership, right? And they have team members that are not willing to step up and take the lead. What are some reasons why that might be happening?
That sounds like more of an inclusion issue. So they may not feel like they're a part of the organization. And, being a person of color myself, at one point being the only one in the room, that gets tiresome. It gets wearing. So you're always asking yourself, why are you interested in me? Now, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I'm always going, why am I not there? Not why should I go? It's why don't you have me there? What's keeping me from getting there? And, and I take this all the way back to when I joined L. Sherm. I left a career in loss prevention and moved into human resources. And it took me a while to get into human resources because I didn't look like human resources, which is what was told to me. I looked like security. And I'm like, so what does security look like? And that never was told. But I looked like security. And then there was that perception that I would not make it. And after getting that up, I kind of went, you know what? I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to take the time to make sure that I get to where I need to go and make sure that I invest. So there are people that will tell you, well, my company won't give me money for my certification. Who paid for my certification? Me. My company won't help me with my college education. Who paid for my college education? Me. I am investing in myself. I'm investing in the most important person that's going to be the role model to my family. So if I don't invest in myself, I mean, it's great. It's awesome. It's wonderful when companies do those wonderful things, but you've got to be willing to say, you know what? This country has some issues, and I can either allow those issues to impact me, which they still impact me. I'm not going to tell you they don't, but what am I doing today to get myself ready for tomorrow? I tell my kids about this all the time. And you really have to take the time to invest in yourself and then invest in others. I got this opportunity to be the president of El Sherm, and that's only because someone invested in me. So I get to invest in other people, and I keep growing this organization where I can, and it actually grows me. And I do a lot more mentorship. So it's so important when people say, I don't want to take that next leap. There's something internally you have to say to yourself, but why? You've got to figure that out yourself and say, you know what, I'm worth it. I'm going to do this. And if the organization that I'm with doesn't see my value, I need to leave that organization. If that organization doesn't see investing in me, I need to make sure that I invest in my own businesses and do what I need to do to get people successful, including myself.
Thank you.
I think that's a great point, Raleigh. And I think that if corporations and organizations really want people of color to step up, and they've got to invest also. While I think it's great that you've invested in you and you've had good mentors along the way, if the company really wants that, they're going to have to put the bones and the sweat and all of that into it to really give people of minority that maybe really want to step into those positions are a little bit, hesitant because of whatever, to be successful. We want them to go in, but not only do we want them to go in, we want them to go in and we want them to be successful and to be great role models for the rest of the organization.
Yeah. And I think
that.
Yeah. And I think, one of the other things is really important is to have a really honest and open, as open as the person is willing to be, conversation about what they want. They may not want to move into management because it doesn't fit their lifestyle. You may require managers to work 45 hours a week, or they may see the other managers working all kinds of crazy hours. And that may be due to those managers' poor time management. We don't know. But they may think, I don't want to take that much time to put into a company when I'd rather spend more time with family, friends. Maybe they're doing something outside of company time to further their career in another direction. And so sometimes it could be fear. Sometimes it could be, I don't want to be put in that bad position because I don't want to be the only one. We all, well, I won't say we all, as a Black woman, I have been in positions where I've had people of different ethnic backgrounds that have intentionally did things to sabotage what I was doing, whether they were upfront, doing it right in front of me, or whether it was things behind the scenes, like forgetting to invite me to a meeting or thinking I didn't need to be involved in that conversation. It didn't pertain to my job or something. So as a Black woman, I get that part, but I also get that when I worked a regular job at a company, it didn't fit me anymore. One of the reasons why I started my company was it didn't fit my lifestyle. It didn't fit what my daughter wanted to do and what she needed. So I had to change my career path to support what I was doing at home. And so you have to have those conversations, I think.
Good
It's
point.
hard when
Well, everyone, it is 3:00, believe it or not.
We can keep going, Tawana.
It is 3:00. I know this is a conversation that I feel like we'll be having for the rest of the year, maybe well into 2021. But I do thank all of you, and I would like whoever that was to be able to give that final thought, and then we'll go ahead and wrap.
I was, what Raleigh said hits the nail on the head. As a minority, it's hard to want to succeed when I don't have people who look like me that I can look up to. And you have the S&P 500. What less than 8% of executives are represented by people of color, and it's very hard to, when you don't see that, it's easy to have self-doubt. And it's people like Raleigh, myself, people on this call, people watching this call, you, your friends, your network. It's very important for us to recognize that in other people and mentor and bring them together. This is a team effort that happens outside of the workplace and just with one single organization. This is a community effort that we all need to really help each other. Because the only way that we get to the top is if we have more people that are willing to step into management roles, that have the education, that have the experience, that are given the opportunities to advance. And we have to be a part of that every day and not just 9 to 5.
Well, thank you so very much, Eric. Well, there you have it, everyone. Today we were talking about HR leaders stepping up and standing in, especially because they are the ones that are managing the biggest assets for corporate America and small America. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in. We are getting ready to go into networking. And for those that may be new to networking with us, on the left side of your screen, you will see an icon that says live over networking. You want to click that button. It will take you to another screen where you can then click ready and you can have one-on-one face-to-face meetings with those who also are still in attendance with us. If you are interested in staying connected with them, simply hit the blue connect button at the top of your screen. Their contact information will end up in your dashboard. Think of it as like business cards when you're out at a trade show or a conference. Again, we thank you for tuning in. We will see you next week here, same time, same place, and we want you all to be safe and love on each other.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.